let's see. Okay, you can see my screen. You can see this is what, please correct me if you're not seeing the ShipIndex.org website. I'm going to talk briefly about that. And then I'll talk about, I'm not going to talk briefly. I'm going to talk a little bit longer about it. This is a database that helps people do research on specific ships. It tells you what books, magazines, websites, databases, and many other things mention the vessels that you'd like to know more about. I always like searching for Monongahela because I'm originally from Seattle, and there's a great photo that I'll get to here. But I'd like to show you a little bit about how the database works. Right now, I said I would start with the free database. So I will switch over to the free database to start. Okay, it looks the same to you right now, but notice that it says log in here. I'm now looking at the completely free database. I don't have any. That it was important to me that this database be freely, that a lot of parts of it be freely available. You don't have to register for a lot of the content, and there is a lot of stuff that's actually quite valuable in the free database. We have over 150,000 citations from in the free database, and these are things that I started when I did this as just as a side project when I was working as a librarian at the University of Washington. And so I've done a search for Monongahela. Now, the full database has a lot more content than the free database. So you will see a lot of entries that that say you got to subscribe to view the content. But there's a whole lot more that's in this free database. Some of these things like, the maritime historians in the group will recognize titles like Fairbairn's Merchant Sail and other books by Cutler and all. And so they're saying that a vessel named Monongahela is mentioned in Carl Cutler's book, Queens of the Western Ocean, the story of America's mail and passenger sailing lines, on pages 403 and 504. Sometimes there are links to that actual page. I'm going to take a risk here. I think that HathiTrust has changed some of their structures. I'm not sure it's really going to take us directly to the page that it was supposed to take us to, but and I'm using a kind of an unusual browser too. So it's not loading right now, but it will take you directly, when you see a hot link there, it will take you directly to that page when it's available in Google Books or in HathiTrust. There are, of course, many that are not in, that are in the subscription database as well. And then but one of the benefits of the free database are these links to WorldCat. I'll talk about WorldCat a little bit later, but if you're not familiar with it, it's a directory of, it's basically a listing of all the resources that are available in collections across the country, around the world, in libraries. They have made some big changes and make it much harder to use, but it's the only thing we have. So this one, this found the word bark and the word Monongahela. So that's why it used to take you directly to this specific resource here that says that there's a particular item, a portrait of Captain Hansen, undated a postcard of Monongahela, and sort of describes it and says it's in there. But you can find books, you can find books that are by or about ships this way, for example. And you'll see up at the top, there are 3 different Monongahelas in this case. You know that, there are many different vessels with the same name, and something we've done over the last few years is to differentiate between these, so that when I know that a citation is specifically about a particular vessel, then I can bring it together so that we find all of those links in there. So we find, here's another citation from Fairbairn, for example, but this one had more of a description, so I knew exactly which one, which ship it was talking about, for example. So that's the sort of information you find. Indexes from the first 50 years of American Neptune in the free database as well. So there's a lot of content in the free database, but there's a whole lot more content in the subscription database as well. And so you can find illustrations, you can narrow it down to, you can sort of filter it and show just the ones are, the ones that have illustrations in there, for example, and other ways that you can search also. And I want to repeat the search for one. I want to point out one other thing about how you can use the database. I think sometimes people don't notice this part, and I think I need to do a better job of making it more visible. But we found the ships that only had the name Monongahela there. If I click on See Other Matching Ships, I find other vessels with that name, such as Monongahela Farmer or Red Jacket, which is a different name for a vessel that later became Monongahela. Or some of these may appear where it says that let's see, that'll bring up Balasore. It's just being very slow. I'm not really sure why that is. Oh, see Monongahela N126, and that's why that's appearing there. So these are some of the things that you can do. And so, for example, if we were to search for WASP, of course, as you may know, there have been 8 or 9 different vessels in the U.S. Navy named WASP, plus, of course, many other vessels named WASP. So we're differentiating these whenever we can. And one of the things that we do to make this work is we use what are called Wikidata identifiers. That number up here is a unique identifier for many, many different things. So it's something that the benefit here is that anybody knows we can all use the same identifier in lots of different resources, and hopefully over time on the internet we will find ways of encoding our web pages. So when we talk about Cleveland, we use one identifier to indicate that we're talking about the city. And the city in Ohio versus the city in Texas, or another identifier to indicate we're talking about the president, or another identifier to indicate that we're talking about a specific ship. So this is something that we can look for in the future, I think. Also, there's a help page that I mentioned here that will tell you about other ways that you can do searches in here. So if you want to search for, let's say you want to search for a ship named Mary. Mary is really kind of, I mean, an individual, a woman's name is going to be, you're going to find many thousands. We found over 5,000 citations there. And then if we look for other matching ships, we find so many more than we can handle. Actually, that's such an overwhelming example. I use Castle. I think that's a little bit better. If I search here, I say, okay, look at all, I just know that there was the name Castle in the name of the ship. And this doesn't have Castle in the name of the ship. So I can do this. And I will admit that some of these terms are a little bit weird. But if I do ship name Castle, I better go check my help page. What did I do wrong there? Oh, right. It's at ship name. So now I find all of the ships that have the word Castle in the name of the ship. Well, that's great, but I want to find the ones that actually start with the word Castle. So if I do a different kind of search, I could do that. And now I'm finding all those that actually start with the word Castle. So the point is, with over 3 million citations in the database, it can be hard to know how to you really need the ability to do some advanced searching. And so our help page here will give you guidance in how to do that searching. But of course, there are lots of other resources that can be helpful. And please bear with me for just a moment. I realize that I don't have, it's kind of funny, but I don't have I do want to show some examples from the handout, and I have it right in front of me, but I don't, only in print. It's not, unfortunately, downloading from the, there we go. Okay. So if I want to look at Lloyd's Register, for example, there's a lot that I can find with the Lloyd's Register online. These are some things that are not included in the ship index database yet because they're not indexed in a way that I can really manage yet. So you can look at the original Lloyd's Registers right here, for example, and take a look at those directly. And there are lots of other resources that are available online as well. we need to make a better list of all of those resources over time. And that's something that I guess I think I'm working on slowly as well. But here are it's a digitized version of a digitized reproduction of the original Lloyd's registers. We just don't have that in a text version yet. So I'm going to jump back here, and I want to go back to. I'm going to go back. Let's see. Let's say I want to search for this USS Wasp. I know this is the Wasp I want to learn more about. I see all these mentions to Morrison's History of the United States Naval Operations. Actually, let's use this book, the Two Ocean War. Now, what I can do is I can I say, well, I want to find this book, and this is an important part of this because I mean, I believe that when you find a citation that tells you, oh, this is, that this vessel is mentioned in this book, you're 3/4 of the way to getting there. You know that the book exists, and now you have to track down that book. Well, how do you track down that book? I would like to show you a couple of ways of doing that. The best is to click on this Find in a Library link here. And what this does is it goes back to WorldCat, the website I mentioned before. WorldCat is a collection of holdings in many, many libraries all around the world. And when you put your location in, you put in your, well, I'll just change it to Seattle, just because to show you how it works. It says, okay, well, if your zip code is 98102, then there's a copy at the University of Washington Libraries and at Seattle Pacific, King County Library System, etc. These are the things that you can do with this database. That said, it's not great. It is not very accurate. There have been cases where I look up a book and it tells me that the nearest library is, say, in Philadelphia, and I'm like, wait a minute. I checked out a copy from Cornell, and I know that Cornell's holdings are in WorldCat here, and there have been a lot of problems with how WorldCat has developed over the last couple of years. Honestly, if there were a different solution, I would absolutely recommend it, but there isn't. And so this is the best that we have, and it can be quite useful still. And I can see all of the libraries that are close to me, all the academic libraries that are close to me that have this. This is a public library system, but not all public library systems put their holdings in WorldCat. So that can be a little bit you may not find your local public library's holdings in here, but WorldCat is really useful to know about. And I mentioned earlier that the free version of the ShipIndex database has got links to books that are either by or about ships. The one was that Monongahela example that I tried there. And so that took you to an entry about an illustration. And they no longer link directly to the records or directly to that subject heading that they had, which is very unfortunate. It makes things a lot more complicated. But it is a way of finding that a journal or a logbook, a handwritten record that was recorded by people on board the vessel may exist. Now, sometimes you'll search for something and you may find that it'll take you to the digitized version of that logbook if an institution has digitized the whole thing, which can absolutely happen. East Carolina University, for example, has digitized a number of logbooks from vessels, as have a lot of maritime museums as well. There are times, though, when it's very strange. It says there's no location listed, and I have a link there to an entry that will explain on my blog page from a couple of years ago that will explain how to find those if you come up in that situation.